Hello everyone, I hope you guys are doing well. My name's Eva and I want to thank you for joining me here in this healing meditation. Just letting yourself really take this time to be in reverence of yourself, to really feel yourself safely held in a divine space, in a space that is deeply intended to be held as sacred, where we come together to intend to know ourselves whole, to intend to allow and attend to the presence of our eternal reality within us. We will to know ourselves, we will to see in love, and we will to see and accept ourselves as love. And so the focus of today's healing is really on this fear of the unknown in your own even day-to-day, moment-to-moment path. Sometimes we can feel very overwhelmed either by choice or by confusion or what feels to us to be a missing sense of direction. And so we fear just how to construct our lives, or the choices we make about what we're doing feels relevant. But then also at this sort of larger, more collective scale, the fear of the unknown, of where we are sort of collectively headed, and understanding, as always, as we always are doing in this work, is to bring the awareness back to the level of our choice of where we affect things, and the choice in our experience, our embodied sort of field, our localized field experience. Lots coming out of the throat, and there is a strong message of this being very related to the time and space that we live in right now. This sort of empire falling, and then the sort of mass of voices that comes up to sort of, from the peanut gallery, from the news, from social media, from everybody with their opinions, about what happens next, what happens after, where we're going as a human collective. And this is why I always like to bring this back to the choice, because the way you see it is your choice. And that is so powerful, because that determines then the course of your path, your future. But it is not to attach to knowing A, B, C, D, E, F, G all the way down the line, and to be in a certain amount of certainty insofar as we know the life that we are of. We know ourselves as eternal beings. We can see in a sort of compassionate witness without attachment to what physically happens. Because if we are very attached to what physically happens, and we are reflecting our own worth back to us, if the physical is not exactly what you thought you wanted, will we have problems with loving ourselves. The pressure that puts on ourselves, on our nervous system, is overwhelming and painful. And it's not an enlightened view. It's not the higher road. It's not the voice of love that speaks to us through us, would not have us see ourselves identified by anything in the physical world, really, but certainly our worth or our happiness should not be dependent on it. And this is coming through as relevant to this fear of the unknown that is coming through, because we have this value system. We have this currency that stands for our own personal value. We have this kind of wage slavery economy that is so wrapped up in our identity and our worth and our work and what we do and how we feel useful and valuable and seen and understood. And that is all changing outwardly, and we see and we know this. And it's not done changing. And what comes from this is not capitalism, is not socialism, is like something so completely different, but we have to open our vision enough and live in the present enough to kind of allow that to be, because if we cling to what it might be by the way of old reference points, then we end up sort of mixing our messages and our signals about what is coming through us in terms of healing sight for the world at large. And the sort of reality that you find yourself, the physical reality that you find yourself in. And then, we all collectively have a choice. We forget, this work is never to sit back and allow what happens to kind of happen without doing anything about it. But we recognize in our view of the unity view that change comes from the sight within you. And when you try to think about it in terms of like quantum entanglement or the projection of consciousness outward through dimensions, that choice then determines the kind of reorganization of the physical reality. And when we are all here in a collective such as we are, that choice to be empowered from within us and say, you know what, that doesn't scare me because my worth and my value is not dependent on that structure. It's very difficult when this is at the level of security and stability and safety in terms of currency and provision, like survival, because then that becomes very easy to say, right? But when you are trying to pay your rent, or you're wondering where you're going to live, or you're like, oh my God, the grocery store is insane. Like, those are physical experiences that so many more people are having that maybe have not had them before, due to the economy and the changing landscape. And physical safety at the level of violence and the threat of violence. That's not new in America, and certainly I've lived in cities that were very violent and have had violent things happen to me, but it is now at this sort of existential level of the state in a way that America has not experienced before. And if you're around the world, then you might have experienced state violence because it's not uncommon. But it's all becoming so loud. And we really do have to, if we want to move along in peace, which is the goal of this channel, it is to not pretend those things aren't happening, but certainly use them as guideposts almost, or sort of like flashlights to see what that's really bringing up as fear from within you, so that you can use your greater identity, your identity in self and spirit, to maybe look at it again. Just so there's more clear-sightedness. There's a sense of peace. There's a sense of a joy that can be reached just because of what we are, of it being easier to appreciate the beauty and the joy of the things that are around us, or to appreciate our hobbies, or to appreciate our work and what we're doing, and not feel so misguided about it, or dirty, or commodified about the way that we kind of have had to participate in the world. This is all coming up through it, so much of what my lessons have been, there's always that sort of teaching, those ideas of staying in something uncomfortable because it's familiar, staying in fear because the fear is what you know. And the unknown to our physical selves is this joy, is this safety, is this freedom, that we don't, these bodies don't know freedom in the self because of the slave wage economy of capitalism that we live in. And so that's a very underlying physical architecture that is coming to be undone through the experience of the embodiment. And that's overwhelming. That's very overwhelming. And misunderstood when people don't have context for the energetic layers and the layers of archetype and the layers of narrative story and the way that sort of these things all interconnect, and what it does to your psyche and what it does to your body and what it does to your emotions over time. That just feels like you're going crazy, or you're depressed, or you're hopeless. But certainly a lot of pressure on the self wants to be released. A sense of time, urgency wants to be released from this expression, and fear of and a sort of automatic response to say, I have never experienced that, by the way of whatever beautiful thing that you are envisioning, yes? And so it's hard for me to feel like I can live into it because I don't have the background experience of it. And certainly we all live different lives. Some people have more lighter representations of safety and a basis in that. Certainly some of us do not. So it kind of runs the gamut of experience. But this healing and this kind of healing is for everyone, no matter what, because this is a very collective kind of healing, a very humanity-based and beyond healing for these archetypes, healing for these belief structures, healing for the paradigms, healing for the architecture. And we all participate because our bodies hold a genetic record. And so we are connected in what we participate with, and all of the architecture of structure of meaning of it all that holds up these dimensions, that holds the ego's timeline of history and continuity in our place in it. That's all coming up to be very much brought into line with each other and sort of collapsed, because it's all the same kind of spiral echo of the ego bouncing off its own walls. Like, it's not new. We are like repeating and so we would stop and see that this choice is just being reflected back. The choice to be separate is the same. This is all the same choice. It's an echo of that original thought of separation that just keeps bouncing off this closed off mind that we insist upon when we think that we're separate. And so this is always, the intention of this space is always to open ourselves to where we are not, to the truth of our being, which is ours to access. And again, this sort of idea of getting lost in the sauce, and I've said it before and I wrote about it, but it has been coming up. And so we kind of always want to bring ourselves back to that goal of peace, internal peace within us, and internal acceptance of the self, and acceptance of where we are now. Acceptance, kimaya sorukushi, acceptance with the understanding that this is a temporary existence here, kimaya sunsotis, but the reality of our existence is eternal. And that dawning should bring you great peace, because it is the truth. And that is what we come to offer. We do come in peace. And that we would let all that is not of that peace go. And the extent to which you believe that is the extent to how you are accessing your relationship to the divine, or the Holy Spirit, or the source, God, creation, the universe, however you name it. God doesn't have a name. It is the only name. That's a willingness to believe that as we open and open and open, our experience will, and our experience of the feeling of the interaction with the reality is the evidence, and then that's what you return to. And when you get lost in the sauce, it can be kind of easy to feel like it's harder to access that peace. And then I think that's when you kind of roll it back to basics. You get clarified in your intention of what you're doing everything for, and you bring yourself back to where you can be in harmony and resonance with that eternal current. And you let the eternal current be. And then you remember that your healing is not of your ego. Healing is of the spirit. What could bring correction? The mind that chose to be insane is going to teach itself to be sane again? No. The mind you never left, in the reality of what you are, will bring correction to your mind. In your choice to pay attention to it. Getting lost in the sauce of all of the different dimensional information that's becoming increasingly available for everyone because of the thinning of the walls of separation between. Losing the why of what you wanted that information for in the first place, or what you get. Access to that information is a natural byproduct of expansion, because you are accepting yourself in more and more of yourself. So you will see yourself reflected back, and you will just be aware of more and more. But it is our job to let that compass still be pointed toward unity. The compass is pointed towards peace. It's pointed towards the timeless. It's not pointed towards achieving something from that information, because it's not the information of the field dream, like of the dimensions, that's going to act like, that's not going to free you. It will be a natural byproduct of your perception, but it does not affect knowledge, and knowledge is what comes after. What comes after the acceptance of enlightened perception. Kimaya sutrua uru kuinsi kiria uru toyoshiata. Kina treano samseishi korru hipaya sunsu konain sior koishi. Sin sinkaya toru kuama trato sosior hushinai sin sokoaos. Himaya naini tionyot. Opening that heart, letting just sort of any tightness unravel, any undue meaning making. Remembering we are the givers of meaning. Everything, you give everything the meaning that it has for you, and so your associations with it, even something you would think to be very neutral, like let's say a table. Well, when you look at a table, you're carrying with you all of these different associations of what a table is. The table in your childhood kitchen, like a table you worked at like the library in college that was like your favorite spot. Like conversations that happened at tables, meals you ate, people you used to know, like all of these kinds of association, family dinners, holidays, all of these different things. People who have made tables, architecture and the kinds of aesthetics that you're into, all of these different things throughout history and literature and myth and your own experience will come with you, and that will be the way that you look at the table. And so that won't be the definition of table to you, then is not the same definition as it is to me. And it is to have multi-dimensional perception is to see that you do carry all of those things with you. And it is to see that you have made this the way that you see it. And the fear of the unknown comes from this ego's fear of loss of control. You have hid from yourself that you made all this. And as you get closer to remembering, the ego says, nope. And then you feel attacked, or you feel in pain, or you feel confused, or you feel overwhelmed, or depressed, or hopeless. Because that's what the ego will turn on by way of their, the underlying subconscious, unconscious beliefs and memories that you have. And I don't say memories in the sense that I believe you have to recover specific memories. If you are meant to remember something that happened to you, your inner being will reveal that to you when and if you need to. To go digging for things that yourself is not allowing you to see, or not merging into your now. Do not cause yourself undue suffering by that. You do not need to do it that way. And there's no judgment on those who go down that path, but you can really destable yourself and introduce Excuse if that was loud. A lot more pain than you need to. We're always in this spiritual journey, I think, we misunderstand. And we sort of stumble through in ways that are more painful than they need to be, but we are learning. The Holy Spirit will never lead you to suffering, but it will lead your journey such that you are not led to clinging to the reality of the dream. If you are intending to follow your inner being's guidance, your higher self, the self that knows, it's not going to present you things it knows you. if there's something that appeared in your physical reality that you would then use to imprison yourself or not grow, well, then it's not going to lead you there. If your goal is to remember yourself whole, it won't lead you to things that you are still going to cling on to, meaning in separation. And that is why I think it's very important to understand the work of the mystic and what we're really doing this for. It is very disappointing when you still have very strong desires of things that you want to experience or gain or have in the physical world when you walk on this path, because that is not what Spirit will lead you to. If you are holding on to it in desirous attachment or identification of yourself as valuable only with it. If you would use it to deceive yourself about what you are, your lesson might be that is not where your identity lies. Look again. And that is not, it's a path of incredible dedication, and you will always be doing identity work that shifts you out of old contexts. Or show you similar contexts so that you can see yourself in relation to them that is not a way that you are imprisoning yourself. So that could be either in the negative or what our egos would think to be positive. It is meant to be in the world but not of it, means that you are neutrally participating. It is all equally for your learning benefit, and so neither thing would be better or worse. That is not the opinion of the ego, and so we really have a difficult time with that. These are, as I said, it doesn't need to be painful. That need not be, but it is for us most of the time, right? So if you find yourself kind of repeating things, I really would encourage you, or seeing things not come about in the physical as you wished. And that is causing this fear of, well, then what will it be? I feel like I'm standing on the edge of a cliff and I have no idea what's happening next. That it is because this is a radically different mindset than the one that we hold from our own conditioning of this one lifetime and from the conditioning of lifetimes since time began. It is unreasonable to think, if you walking around in this body, sure, you can make the choice of mind and see that in meditation, but as you are walking through in this body, which is coded, that you would be able to snap your fingers is not always so realistic. It is called a practice for a reason, and those who have achieved deep, deep peace and what you might call enlightenment usually do not live lives like deeply enmeshed in the physical world, right? So we say this a lot, the vision of the Holy Spirit comes at expense of the projection of the ego. You can't serve two masters. You're looking, that's, one comes at the cost of the other, right? Christ's vision will make all of those other things disappear. They will not be there for you to see if you don't want them. And that's, I do think that asking yourself that question, what am I doing this for? Until you feel like you can't ask it anymore. You know, that really will help you see what kind of path you're on and where your attachments still lie. It's not to say that nothing's ever going to happen in your physical life, but I'm not a coach, so it's never going to come out that that's what I'm going to talk about. It is how we can see ourselves as one with the life that we all share, and that the world will not show you that, because the world is built in separation. It won't show you unity unless you first see unity in yourself. Then you offer it to the world that you see. And that's when the world that you see changes. But don't lose hope. Don't give up. You know, I talk about the Lord of the Rings all of the time, but it's such a powerful story, and especially for the time that we're in now. I just rewatched them. Like, I was so struck this time by how they all just keep going. All of the members of the fellowship, none of them leave. They all say, we are all going to continue forward to support the destruction of the ring, right? Like, Frodo didn't know. He had no proof that all of his friends were still continuing on, right? Like, when everybody was separate in the second movie and they weren't in contact with each other and they didn't know, they still said, you know what, this is the guiding light in my heart. I will continue to hold the hope and hold the light of love within me to support this general mission, even though I might not be able to see everybody who's doing it also. I trust and I have faith, right? I have faith that there are other people that are also choosing. I won't let myself get lost in grief. And I also do want to do, I would like to do, I don't know how to name it yet, or really, it'll come when it's meant to, but I do think we should do a grief and mourning for the sort of dissolving reality, because we still have a lot of attachment there. And we know what unprocessed grief can do to our bodies and our minds and our psyche. So as it's happening, to grieve it as it's happening, and to do it in a space that is so intended to be an offering of peace and of sanctity, of divinity, of accepting ourselves as that divinity, even in our forgetting that, of course, we would have the capability to come into our hearts and join together in this etheric space to be together in that unity, so that we can feel safe to kind of explore things that are uncomfortable without getting washed away by the magnitude of how it feels to witness. Hina morru kua tina nis nion toru ku itoyot. Kiayatari uruhushini toru ku apas koro kuitayo ku arayasnayat. Kinandriti kioru kuis ishi tokoru ku imaya nayana. Hina oru ku ishini troarati sta. Ki karato soro ku anashi. It feels very much like it's coming from the throat, because in this fear of the unknown, there is a need to speak incredibly honestly with yourself about your vision, about what is in your imaginarial creation realm of what you believe is possible, and also to be quite honest about, without self-judgment, about what you're holding that you're afraid of. And that goes in both realms of duality, but that there is a sort of like a just a lot of energy coming out. Naya sunso korruhutush. But what I guess we would call a block on honesty that's kind of making you feel stagnant or discouraged about actually what you are envisioning of your life to be possible. And like haste. Spirit would like us to slow down, to recognize ourselves safe right now, and the value of ourself and the reality of our life is not having anything to do with the dream world. It doesn't mean that our work here to bring the light into the world by our acceptance of it for ourselves. And that's all that it is. We make it out to mean so much more by the way of the incredible culture of needing to share things and broadcast them for them to be valid. We are meant to share and communicate with all life and all beings, but when you extend your awareness, you see that that is happening all of the time anyway. We are here to accept ourselves and to purify our own self through our choice. And what comes through that, I do believe, is held in our vision to be a sort of guiding light. But we are not meant to try to force that into the physical world, because you will either serve the oppressor in a way that you do not mean to, but you will. And we all do it, and there's no reason to feel guilty about that. But we do need to see how complicated it is, so we can try to serve the one self, and to not serve separation by being really honest about why we are doing things in the certain ways that we're doing them. If it's based in a fear of security, we need to really get honest with that fear. And to place less weight and meaning on like mundane, which means jobs also. Like it is to place less meaning on what we typically think to be the most valuable meaning, because the reversal current is in that value. That's separation of life from self. And so much of this fear of the unknown with the empire falling is because that basis is, the spirit doesn't feel fear. So yourself in love is not afraid to be in love. It is your ego. When you are feeling fear, it is always your ego that is trying to distract you and hide your choice of mind from yourself. And so your spirit doesn't need healing. Your mind does. The mind that's fractioned itself off. Because I might sound like I say the same things over and over, but do we not need the reminding? Because, we'll turn the video off, we'll stay in meditation for 5-10 minutes, and then, a couple hours later something will happen and we'll react in the physical as if that's the most important part of it. But we are being asked to trust, we're being asked to remember our choice, we're being asked to be in stillness with the power of God in us. The power of God is in you. The power of God is in you. We have never left the mind of God. God is our home. The universe is our home. Love is our home. And so, yes, that goes with you wherever you go. That will be your guiding light to safety, even when it looks like you're not safe. And I know this. I have evidence for this. I know this. I know this to be true. I know it. And we are grateful it is so. I'm going to end this here. I hope that this was helpful to you guys. One-on-one sessions open, very powerful. Lots of ways to work together. Trance meditations, which are like light language tapes with sound healing, and written guidance, very, very powerful revelation work. And just check out the links and I will see you in the next video. God bless you.